Here with me is the OnePlus Nord CE2 5G, and I've been using it for a week now, and this is my review of the device. The one with me here is grey mirror, and there is another alternative color which is Bahama blue. As the name suggests, grey mirror, you could literally see yourself at the back of your phone, and it really attracts fingerprint if you do not put on a case. So let's start with the unboxing. Firstly, it comes with OnePlus Bullets Wireless Z as part of the pre-order deal. And putting that aside, there is actually a peel of the plastic wrap of the phone box, which allows easy removal of the plastic wrapper around the box. And opening up the box, firstly you're greeted with the phone case, followed by the phone itself. And a 65 SuperVOOC charger, which is a pretty big brick, and a red charging cable of a USB-A to USB-C. And upon setting up the phone, it actually allows you to choose between an app drawer or a non-app drawer style, an option between the three classic buttons, which is the home, back, and recent, or the more modern way of using gesture navigation for your device, as well as the whole setting up of the fingerprint, face unlock recognition, as well as a choice of putting pinned, patterns, or a combination of alphanumeric. I kind of like the setup process where it actually allows you to choose upon setting up the phone instead of going to the home page and you have to dig into the settings to make your preferences after the phone boot up successfully for the first time. So that is pretty neat in terms of the welcoming experience for the phone. And digging into the firmware of the phone, it is running the latest firmware, so there is no update upon first boot up. It is running Android 11 unfortunately, and it is supposed to run Android 13 this year. So in terms of its Android version, it is lacking because Android 11 is supposed to be a 2020 version. And right now it is 2022, so minimally it should be shipped with Android 12 instead of Android 11. However, in terms of its security patch, it is at February 2022, which is rather recent, and it is running OxygenOS 11.3. The only pre-installed software apart from the default Google apps and OnePlus app would be the Netflix application. Other than that, there are no pre-installed games or other softwares that are not part of Google or OnePlus. So digging deeper apart from the firmware, I noticed that the default refresh rate is 90 Hz, which is good, unlike the recent devices which I've reviewed, which is default at 60 Hz despite the phone being able to run at 90 Hz refresh rate. And 90 Hz refresh rate is definitely the preferred way, at least for me, because of the smoothness of it compared to 60 Hz refresh rate. The phone comes with an in-display fingerprint, which is again personal preferences, whether you prefer to have it at the back of the phone, at the front of the phone, or at the side of the phone. But I believe fingerprint at the back of the phone is kind of a thing in the past, as you can see the recent phone launches are either at the front or at the side of it. A nifty feature that OnePlus include for the fingerprint is that if you were to hold on the fingerprint after you unlock the phone, there is this thing called the quick launch where you could trigger either a certain action or certain applications. And for me, I actually included the 5 most frequently used applications from the lock screen that I feel it is convenient to access to upon unlocking the phone. There are also ambient display and horizon light. Ambient display is basically always on display, but OnePlus decides to give it a name for it, and it actually works the same as the other customizable always on display where you could pick what kind of things you want to display when you actually lock the phone. And for ambient light, it is essentially notification pulse or the surrounding notification light when your phone is locked, and when there's an incoming notification, there will be a light surrounding it. And unfortunately, there are only 3 different color options that you can pick from, but at least it is better than nothing in terms of customization. Another thing I noticed in the phone while I was exploring is this thing called the screen off gestures. However, it is buried quite deep in the settings that you may not find it if you were not to explore the phone thoroughly enough. But basically, screen off gestures is gestures that you can do when your phone is screen off, such as double tap to wake, drawing a letter O for a camera, or drawing a letter V for a torchlight. And these are things which I feel it is rather useful or handy. For example, if you were to need a quick torch, you could just quickly draw a V sign on your phone and that will trigger the torch immediately in the dark. There is also an option for you to customize your own screen off gestures if you want to, if you find any of the following to be useful for your usage. While watching media, as I was controlling the volume, I noticed there is this thing called the live caption, which in my opinion, I wouldn't use it because of that delay. But if you were to find it useful to have some sort of subtitles, if the content creator did not include any subtitles, you could rely on the live caption, and I feel that it is rather accurate as long as the person speaking the words are clear enough for the phone to understand and translate it to live caption. Here is the Poco N4 Pro, and I've been using it for a week now, and here is my thoughts and opinion of the device. And speaking about volume, if you were to press the volume rocker on the phone, the volume slider will actually appear on the left, which actually fits in where the volume rocker is on the phone. However, if you were to tilt it to the horizontal view, the volume rocker will be on the right instead of on the left. So maybe it is a little inconsistent that it is suddenly on the left and then it shifts to the right, or maybe because I'm kind of used to an Oppo device where it is on the left regardless it is on horizontal or vertical orientation. And speaking about volume rocker, the phone comes with a single firing speaker instead of having stereo speakers. So while viewing portrait videos, it actually sounds pretty good for a single firing speaker, and because of how the volume is coming out from the bottom of the phone that is firing towards you. However, if we were to rotate it in a landscape orientation to watch videos like on YouTube or Netflix, then that's where the problems comes in, where it kind of feels that there is a sound is coming out from one side and it doesn't give that surround feel of having a more immersive experience of content that you're watching. The next thing that I dislike about the phone is probably the vibration motor of the phone. It is better than the previous two phones which I've reviewed recently, but it is not the best experience. At least for typing, the vibration motor isn't that bad, but the rest of it, like the vibration of any incoming calls or any incoming notification, those are vibrations which I do not really like. Moving on to the cameras. The phone comes with a 64 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 16 megapixel front facing camera. I'll start with the user experience of the phone first. When you were to switch between the main and the ultra wide camera, there is that 0.5 to 1 second transition instead of having a smooth transition between those two lenses. The tip that will appear at the top of the phone actually is a good touch, such as moving further away if you are too near to the subject. Shoot in a well-lit environment for best result if the phone deems your surrounding to be a little too dark. And photograph from 4 cm away for best result for the macro photography. So these are tips which I feel that could really help a photographer to take better photos, say if it meets into such situations. There is this mode when I were to tap into more, which is dual view video, which I feel it could be a cool feature if you were to use it, because it kind of simulates like a Twitch streamer. There is a small circle or small rectangular at the corner of the video while using the main camera to shoot whatever is in front of you. It's kind of like a vlogging mode, and it can showcase both yourself as well as whatever is in front of you. And if you were to tap onto the template of it, you could choose between the half-half screen where half of the screen is facing you and the other half is facing in front of you, or you could choose between a circular or a rectangular cutout of yourself where you could pick at any corner if you want, with the rest of the view being whatever is in front of you. So moving on to the photos, I feel that these days, as long as the phone is at the lower mid-tier onwards, daylight photography will always never disappoint, as long as there are sufficient lightings for the photos that you'll be taking. There is a choice between the main and the ultra-wide camera, and I try to incorporate certain photos which are part of my day-to-day, such as taking food photography, the nature photography, and some selfies to showcase certain photo samples for the cameras. I even tried to take a close-up photo with the macro mode compared to the main camera, as one of the cameras on the back of the phone is a macro camera. For nighttime, I feel that shooting in auto mode actually works better compared to night mode for low light photography, and for those really dark environment, the night mode would actually help to brighten up the surrounding and would allow you to see what you are shooting. However, do not expect the details to be captured. For this phone, it works for both the main and ultra wide camera as well as the front camera for night mode. And speaking about the front facing camera, As long as you are in a darker environment, the flash will be in auto mode by default, and it will actually brightens the front of the screen, which can be a little glaring, especially when you are in a dark environment, but it does help in brightening up yourself when taking a selfie. And speaking about night mode, it does take about 1 to 2 seconds depending on how dark the environment is before capturing the photos that you want, and it'll take a couple of seconds more to process the photo, which I feel that it can be a little bit for a casual user because of how long it takes to capture and then process the photo. And that might be a little bit of a downside there. And moving on to the videos, here are the samples which I have taken. This is a sample of a rear camera in daylight scenario. Another sample of the rear camera, but this time around shooting at 4K resolution instead of 1080p, just to show you the differences of the quality of it. Last but not least, this is the ultra wide camera. So this is a 4K shot in a low light scenario where you can shoot up to 4K 30 FPS, and this is how it looks like at night. And when I were to point at it, the camera actually suggests me to turn on AI, so this is like a AI night mode but 1080 at 30 FPS. For the ultra wide camera, you could see that it actually captures less light and the maximum resolution is 1080p at 30 FPS. Rear camera, maximum resolution 1080p. Apparently you can't choose 30 or 60 FPS, so I assume this is the 30 FPS resolution. Similarly, for the front facing camera, the camera actually prompts me to turn on the AI for night, so I suppose this will actually help to brighten up the background, brighten up the surrounding basically. So other than the features and the cameras, the phone is equipped with a MediaTek Dimensity 900, and it has a 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, and there is NFC and 3.5mm headphone jack, as well as a dual SIM plus an expandable storage. The battery comes in 4500 mAh, and for my usage, as you can see in the battery usage, I was able to use the phone for 2 days with over 10 hours of screen on time. And the way I use my phone is between like YouTube's, social medias, messaging apps such as Telegram, Messenger. And the thing I like about recharging the battery is that it comes with the 65 Super VOOC charger, and the charging speed is really fast. So there was an instance where I woke up and I realized that the battery is running low at below 20%. So I just plug it up, went for a shower, had my breakfast, and then packed my things. Once everything is done, the battery is fully charged. So that translates to about 40 minutes maybe to charge the phone, even though I know there are like 120 watts and 150 watts that can charge up in probably less than 20 minutes. So overall for the phone, I like the overall OS and smoothness of it. I like features such as the screen off gestures and quick launch, which I find it to be rather convenient. And probably the overall design of the phone with minimal bezel at the front and at the back with the mirror finish, together with how the camera hump kind of looks like the Oppo Find X3 Pro, and I kind of like the overall design of the phone. For the parts which I dislike, which is firstly the single firing speaker which I've mentioned earlier, as well as the vibration motor which doesn't really feel very nice to use, and probably the processing time required for night mode, which is the time to take the photo, afterwards the time to actually process the photo. So that might take up to maybe 4 to 5 seconds long, which is pretty long in my opinion. So lastly is the price. So this phone costs $499, which I feel it may be a little bit pricey, but I guess it justifies with the chip that it uses and the capability of shooting 4K 30 FPS at the back of the phone, and probably the overall build quality of the phone. And if you will compare spec by spec, this phone actually is similarly spec'd as the Oppo Reno 7, and that actually costs $799. And I guess if you were to compare between these two phones, $499 is definitely worth to get it compared to $799. And the differences is just the aperture differences of the main camera and the OS. One is ColorOS and the other is OxygenOS, as well as a different selfie camera that both phone uses. So if you enjoyed this video, do give it a like, do comment down if you have any opinions, and do subscribe for future videos like this. Thanks for watching.